I'm at the Filmfest Hamburg, and my guest today is Lukas Dhont, and we're here to talk about your new film, Close. Can you tell us shortly in your own words what it's about?
Well, it's a film about two young boys, Leo and Rémi. They're both 13 years old, and they have an incredible, intimate, tender friendship, I would say. One that really marks childhood also. And then they go together to high school for the first time in the first year. And there, all of a sudden, they're confronted with the fact that their friendship is questioned by their peers as maybe something more than that. And it starts to make them re-question themselves what their bond is.
At yesterday's screening here at the Filmfest Hamburg, you told the audience that you had the idea while reading a study.
I did. I think that really the starting point for the film was reading a study by an American psychologist called Nayo Bue. Her book is called Deep Secrets, and it's a book in which she interviewed 150, a lot of Afro-American boys, between the age of 13 and 18. And at 13, she asks them to talk about their friendships, their male friends. And what is so beautiful is that a lot of them talk about their friends like they talk like love stories. It's the most important person in their lives. They share everything with them. It's not at all this narrative of Lord of the Flies. It's not at all the narrative of a sort of competition. It's really, yeah, there's an incredible intimacy there. And then she re-asks those same boys, those same questions at 15, 17, 18. And you just see how these same boys don't dare to use the same emotional vocabulary when they talk about other men. Everything that is considered emotional belongs clearly more to the world of the feminine, is gay. And so when I read that, I saw all these boys, in a way, distancing themselves, not only from each other, but also from themselves. And I really connected to that because as a young queer boy growing up on the Flemish countryside, at a certain point in puberty, I felt that way. I felt that the intimacy I shared with other boys was looked at through the lens of sexuality, and I started to fear it. I started to have fear of it. And so what I had felt as something incredibly, or considered as something incredibly personal, when I read that research, I said, no, it's about something way bigger than that. It's really about masculinity in this world and what we teach young men to value more than other things, and what we teach them to be their vocabulary. And so then I think the origin of Close started, in the sense that on the one hand we wanted to show the beauty of that sensual, intimate connection, but also what the loss of that intimacy can do to young human beings, but more specific young men growing up.
Also, how you found these two amazing boys is a story of its own. You talked about a train ride yesterday.
Yes.
How was it?
Well, I mean, some people will call it luck, others will call it destiny. I was sitting on a train listening to music, and there was this boy sitting next to me with his friends, and he was talking and being very expressive. So you have to imagine I'm listening to Max Richter. So I'm watching a film, and I'm watching this boy express himself so powerfully. And I asked him if he wanted to do a casting for cinema, because also I saw he had this angelic, androgynous quality to him that I was also looking for the lead. And so he screamed yes. And he came to our casting, and we casted during full days over the summer before we shot the film. That means that we invited the boys to come for a full day. And during that full day, we did small exercises with them. It was important to me because I think 20 minutes sometimes limits, their ability to grow and become more comfortable. And I think with young people who've never acted before, it's really important. And during that day, we just saw how Aiden and Gustav, who plays Rémi, really gravitated towards each other like magnets from the beginning. And they were talking with each other, telling each other, like, you do this and I'll do that. And so when we saw that, we saw, first of all, the possibility of friendship, which for this film is really important. But also of collaboration. And I think that was really something that intrigued us and that attracted us. And we saw them again over a couple of times, and they kept growing and they kept pushing each other to their possibilities. Next to that, of course, Gustav, for example, we found in Brussels in a theater class of young people where he was performing, and he immediately caught our eyes.
As you said, the chemistry between these two boys are really incredible, and that must be the reason, because what you just told me. But how did you achieve this chemistry while you were shooting?
Well, I think first of all, so when then we decided to work with them, we let them read the script to see how they would resonate with it. And the themes that the script talk about are really, at this point, pivotal in their lives. They are young men growing up. They are encountering, the pressure of masculinity and the fragility of friendship. So I think we had a lot of conversations about that and about why certain scenes and why we wanted to make this film, and they got really excited about that and about each other. And I think they are very complementary. They're very different types of characters, but I think that's exactly what worked about their connection and about their chemistry. I must say, we ate a lot of pancakes during rehearsals. We did made a lot of cakes. I think we spent a lot of time, and we created a lot of moments in which we could get to know each other. And then we wanted to make this film really as precise and as beautiful as it could be. And I think because we all had our heads in that direction, then when we came on set, it was a matter of filming it. It was a matter of filming the trust and the connection that had been built up before coming to this shooting period. Because we shot it over a summer, and I think we just spent that summer together, and then the chemistry was there.
When you were shooting that summer in Belgium, you ran into some minor problems.
Well, let's say that it was not an ideal summer for Belgium. A part of our country was overflooded. There were even people evacuated. It was really, weather-wise, it was quite dramatic in Belgium that year. So for a film in which you want to portray a childhood summer, it's challenging, but that's always, it's working with those surprises also. It's trying to find ways to have those surprises be gifts. And sometimes you see them and sometimes you don't, and it's about trying to find ways to work with them. I think we tried to work with them as much as we could, but of course it's sometimes you just have to change what's in the writing.
What I really enjoyed when watching the film yesterday is that there are so many things in between the lines, which you might only get by the expression on the face. How do you develop something like that with the actors? Did you give them a bigger backstory, or?
Well, I think that, first of all, when people read our scripts, because I don't write them alone, I write them together with Angelo Thesis, I'm confronted with the fact that people consider them more to be choreographies than to be scripts. I think that is because I think I always, before wanting to be a filmmaker, really wanted to be a dancer. And then I didn't pursue that career, but I went into cinema. It's a whole story, but
I'm glad you did.
yeah, and so we went into cinema, but I've always tried to stay close to choreographers. Like when I was in film school, I always did my internships with choreographers and tried to stay close to the world of the dance. And when I write, I think I write a lot in movement, contrast of movement, or just continuation of it. So I think for me, it's easier to think of it like that. I try to compose with looks and with images, a sort of melody that then becomes the script. And because dance as an art form is so inspiring to me, of course, it's also to me a lot about the unspoken, about what isn't literally being said, but what is being felt. I also come from the Flemish countryside where a lot of things were unspoken. So, I mean, a lot of things were in looks and in movements and in intentions rather than in what was actually said. I think our films are about characters that have created internal mechanisms because of the society that they live in. So we try, I think in many ways it are films about the internal, and I try to look for people that can exteriorize it through the eyes and through the expression next to the movement that we create for them. And I'm really intrigued by that. I'm intrigued by the idea of expression and ways of looking to communicate the atmosphere and feelings we want to communicate.
After your wonderful directorial debut with the film Girl, how much pressure did you make yourself to deliver another amazing film?
Well, I think Girl was our first film, and I think when you make a first film, it's like you jump and you don't really know what's to come, and you go through things for the first time every time. And of course we traveled for a long time with the film, and I talked a lot, and I was a lot, let's say, in my head because I was analyzing it, talking about the theme, so it was quite rational. And then all of a sudden when that stopped and I returned and I was at my desk in front of that white page, first of all, it was the second time, so I was aware of everything that was to come. And it really took me a long time to get out of my head and back into my heart and into my body, because I think that's where I need to be in order to write. I think I write films because of the fact that I want to show what I experienced through my eyes growing up. I want to show a way of looking that I haven't always seen expressed, and so I need to connect to that in order to be able to write. So that took me quite some time, and I think I was really, for the second process of writing, I think I was much more insecure than for the first one. I was doubting everything, and I think doubt is a very important element, but not when it overshadows every decision you make. So that was a process that I had to go through, and I don't know how it's going to be for the third one, but now I have been in that place also. That place was the first time, and now I think I know how it feels.
Talking about Girl, after the film came out, you had a little backslash for casting a non-trans person to play a trans person. I'm always surprised by that reaction, because people neither question if a serial killer isn't played by a real serial killer. So why do you think that's a big problem when it comes to LGBTQ matters? I'm still trying to understand that.
Well, I think over the years there's been a lot of serial killers in films and in series. They've had a lot of representation, serial killers. And
no, I mean,
trans people haven't. The trans community has had very little representation. For the longest time, they've not been seen, they've not been shown, they've not been a part of the conversation. And so when there is a document, an element coming that is somehow connected to the trans identity, it's of course really important to them. And there's a lot of pressure on it also to now be the representation we've so long hadn't had. So I think that if you know that, then you respect that and you understand that. And I mean, I think that people can have different opinions and can dialogue about it, and that is also the interesting part of making something and learning other perspectives, learning why something is fragile, learning why something is difficult for someone. And I think that is also has been the beauty of that first film, is that it also came with really a process of learning. Yeah.
And what was the reaction when you heard that Close would be competing in Cannes?
I was in an Airbnb in Amsterdam. I closed the windows because I got paranoia that someone would see me, and I jumped up and down the Airbnb for the longest time. Called my mom and my dad immediately. And I think I was really, really tired because I had been through the editing, immediate post-production. But I was so fulfilled in that moment because, I mean, like I told you just earlier, it was a very insecure place for me, making a second film and trying to put so much of ourselves in there. And then when you understand you get selected for a festival like that, it's really powerful because, you know, there's many films out there, many beautiful films, and being a part of that selection is a privilege. And yeah, I mean, there's worse things than presenting a film in competition at Cannes.
And the film was not only competing in Cannes, it also won the Grand Prix. And later was awarded with the prize of the Sydney Film Festival. And now it's the official Belgium Oscar submission for Best International Feature. I can only imagine how that might feel.
That is quite a good list. It's you know, I'm really thankful that the film resonates with the people that see it. I'm very eager to release it in different countries and to have an audience encounter the film and hopefully resonate with it. I will say that, you know, the Oscars, it's like they are a childhood dream of mine. When I was growing up, we watched a lot of American films. My mom was really a cinephile, and she was part of the reason that I wanted to become a filmmaker. And one of her favorite films of all time is Titanic. So I mean, that's the Oscar, like that is full Oscar glory. So I know it just feels I feel very honored to be able to travel with the film and meet like an audience in Hamburg and an audience in the States and that people get to see it.
Mm-hmm. What do you hope the people will walk away with after watching the film?
Well, how important the connections in our lives are and how fragile they can also be. I think it's really a film about tenderness in a society that can be very brutal, and it's about what the loss of tenderness can do to ourselves and to each other. So I hope that it's a little bit an ode to the importance of connection and fragility, and that people who see it maybe somehow reconnect.
Mm. I always think that having a budget for a film is a good thing, and I wouldn't change anything in your film right here. But would you change or have made anything different if you had, let's say, unlimited money, unlimited time?
Wow, that is always, you always start to dream of that, I guess, as a director, because you always want things, and time is always beautiful because you get to experiment and change and experience more maybe. But I think limitations are also really powerful, and they make you really re-question the essential. They make you go to the core of an idea. They make you strip everything that is ballasts. So for me, I guess it's always a challenge to work with limitations, and sometimes you bump into bump into them, but it's also a way to really make you focus on what's essential. And no, I think I'm happy with the context in which we get to make films, is that we get to make films in Belgium, co-produce a little, and they're not big budget productions, but we get to speak what we want to speak about and also reach an audience that is international. So I feel it's quite a comfortable and privileged position, actually.
Let's have a look at the future. Is there anything new on the horizon that you can already talk about? What's coming next?
I've learned not to talk about things too early. Last time I did, and then we changed ideas, and I was like, oh, I shouldn't have. But there is a film that we're working on, that we're playing with as an idea, that is a very different piece, but somehow also connected by the themes and by certain elements that we want to continue speaking of. And I'm also really exploring the idea of working or writing for a series, because it's a format that interests me, because you have more time, you have more space to take side tracks and go exploring and leave, that one track for a moment. So we're writing on a couple of things, and then I also have some scripts that I need to read and see if I like them and if they can mean something to us.
That sounds interesting. I'm looking forward to everything that's coming our way. Good luck with the film. Good luck with the second screening tonight.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time.
Lovely.
Thank you so much.